Every 90 seconds, another person in America suffers sudden cardiac arrest. By the time this video ends, more than a dozen families will have received that call. And for some of them, the cause was never just their age or their heart history. It was a bottle sitting on the bathroom shelf that they were promised was safe. I'm Dr. Michael Reed. After 15 years of practice, I've watched this exact picture play out more times than I can count. Someone who felt fine, who was managing their blood pressure or sleeping okay or dealing with a little anxiety, suddenly collapses. No warning, no time. And everyone around them calls it just one of those things. It wasn't. It was a medication, one almost nobody thinks to question because a doctor prescribed it and a pharmacy filled it. Here is what the newer research keeps showing. One ordinary everyday class of drug can raise the risk of a fatal heart rhythm hard inside a single year. And most people taking it have no idea it is happening. Today, I am walking you through the 9 medications most closely tied to sudden cardiac arrest. Counted down from the ones that get quietly overlooked to the one I consider the most destructive of all. Watch for number 3. It is handed to millions of seniors for something that sounds completely harmless, and it may be quietly destabilizing the electrical system of your heart right now without a single warning sign. Before we start, tell me in the comments how old you are and which medications you take every day. I read them, and the age of this audience shapes what I cover next. Let's start at number 9. And don't let the low spot on the list fool you, because this one is sitting in almost every medicine cabinet in America. Number 9 is diphenhydramine. You know it by its drugstore name, Benadryl. People reach for it to fall asleep, to calm an allergy, or to take the edge off a cold. It costs a few dollars. It sits on an open shelf. And most people assume that because nobody needs a prescription for it, it must be gentle. Inside your heart, it is doing something very different. Benadryl belongs to a group of drugs called anticholinergics. They block a chemical your body uses to regulate both the brain and the heart's electrical timing. As we age, the heart's conduction system becomes more fragile. A drug that interferes with it lands far heavier on a 70-year-old heart than a 30-year-old one. In my practice, I've watched patients take a nightly antihistamine for years and slowly develop palpitations or near fainting spells, never once connecting it to the pink pill by the bed. The research connects it plainly. A 2023 analysis of older adults who use strong anticholinergic drugs regularly found a significantly higher rate of serious arrhythmias and sudden cardiac events compared with people who stayed off them. Here's what to do. Read the label on anything you take to sleep and anything marked PM, nighttime, or allergy relief, because those are very often just Benadryl wearing. It's a different name. If you take it for allergies, there are newer antihistamines like loratadine, sold as Claritin, that do not affect the heart the same way and are far safer for the long haul. Never stop a medication on your own. Bring it to your doctor. But stop assuming that over-the-counter means safe for your heart. That is number 9. Number 8 is one your stomach loves and your heart quietly pays for. Number 8 is the proton pump inhibitors. The big names are omeprazole, sold as Prilosec, and esomeprazole, sold as Nexium. These shut down acid production in the stomach, and they get handed out for heartburn, reflux on them for years, sometimes decades, because the moment they stop, the symptoms come roaring back. Here is the part almost nobody hears at the pharmacy counter. Your stomach needs acid to absorb certain minerals, and chief among them is magnesium. Magnesium is critical for the electrical stability of the heart. Turn the acid down far enough, long enough, and your magnesium quietly drops. Low magnesium is one of the classic triggers for dangerous heart rhythms, including the kind that can cause sudden cardiac arrest. A large 2016 study of older adults found that regular long-term PPI users had a meaningfully higher risk of cardiovascular events than people who did not take them. The trouble runs deeper than just one mineral. These drugs have also been linked to changes in blood vessel function over time. So here is the move. If you take a PPI every single day, that is the conversation to have with your doctor. Many people can taper down onto a gentler class called H2 blockers, like famotidine, sold as Pepcid, which is far less likely to deplete magnesium. The goal is the lowest dose for the shortest time, not a pill you take forever out of habit. 7 is prescribed for a problem most people would rather not talk about. Number 7 is the bladder drugs, and the one to know by name is oxybutynin, sold as Ditropan. It is given to seniors who deal with a sudden, urgent need to get to the bathroom. The relief is real, and the embarrassment it spares people is real too. But oxybutynin works by blocking the same chemical pathway Benadryl blocks, and this one slips across into the system easily. In older adults, it can raise resting heart rate and make the heart more irritable. Taken month after month, year after year, that adds up. In 2019, a major study of people over 65 who took strong anticholinergic drugs like oxybutynin for more than a year found a substantially elevated risk of serious cardiac events. Almost none of them were warned. They were told the pill would calm the bladder. Nobody mentioned it might be destabilizing the heart at the same time. If you take oxybutynin and you have noticed new palpitations, lightheadedness, or a racing heart, take that seriously. You do not have to choose between your bladder and your heart. Newer drugs like mirabegron, sold as Mirabetrix, work through a completely different pathway and do not carry the same cardiac burden for most older adults. Bring it up at your next visit. Number 6 might be the most surprising one here because it is one of the most prescribed drugs on earth. Number 6 is the statins. Simvastatin and atorvastatin, sold as Zocor and prescribed medicines in the world, especially after age 60. And they do an important job lowering cholesterol and reducing the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Statins belong in a lot of people's lives. This is not a case against them. What follows is the half of the story that usually gets left out. Your heart muscle cells and the membranes around them need a certain amount of cholesterol to function cleanly. Lower it hard enough with a strong enough statin, and in some people, the electrical stability of the heart can be affected. The statins that cause the most discussion are the ones that penetrate tissue more readily. A 2023 study of adults over 70 who had been on higher dose statins for more than 3 years found a measurable increase in certain rhythm disturbances. Some patients described sudden racing hearts or near fainting that had not been there before. The important thing to understand is that not every statin affects the body the same way. Pravastatin and rosuvastatin are generally considered to have a milder profile in this regard. So if you have been on a statin for years and you are noticing new palpitations, dizziness, or unusual fatigue, that is a real conversation to have with your doctor about dose or a switch. It is not a reason to quietly stop a medication that may be protecting your arteries. Get the plan right with professional guidance, never on your own. If this is connecting the dots for you, take 1 second and tap that like button. Genuinely helps this information reach more seniors who need to hear it. And while you are down there, tell me how many prescriptions you are taking right now. I read every comment. All right, back to the countdown. Number 5 is the benzodiazepines. Lorazepam, sold as Ativan, diazepam, sold as Valium, alprazolam, sold as Xanax. These are among the most commonly prescribed drugs in America for anxiety and sleep problems. They work by boosting the brain's calming signal. At first, they can feel like a rescue. The panic eases. Sleep finally comes. But over time, the picture begins to change. These medications slowly regulate heart rate and blood pressure stability. In older adults, long-term use has been linked to higher rates of falls, respiratory depression, and in some studies, increased cardiac risk when combined with other drugs. A 2022 study that followed thousands of seniors found that those who used benzodiazepines for longer than 3 months had a meaningfully higher rate of serious cardiovascular events. The longer-acting ones like diazepam appeared more problematic because they remain in the body longer and accumulate. The cruelest part is the exit. If a benzodiazepine is stopped abruptly, the rebound anxiety and physical stress on the heart can become genuinely dangerous. So here is the rule, and matters. If you have been taking a benzodiazepine for more than a few weeks, do not stop suddenly. Work closely with your doctor to taper gradually. There are gentler alternatives for anxiety and sleep that do not carry the same systemic load. Number 4 is a single medication prescribed for 3 different problems, and it carries one of the heaviest hidden burdens on this list. Number 4 is amitriptyline, sold as Elavil. It is an older antidepressant that is still widely prescribed today for nerve pain, sleep difficulties, and even migraine prevention. That versatility is exactly why it became so widespread. Underneath, it is one of the most powerful anticholinergic and sodium channel blocking drugs still in common use. That combination can slow the heart's electrical conduction and prolong the QT interval, the exact kind of change that raises the risk of a fatal arrhythmia. With long-term use in older adults, the cardiac effects stop being rare and become a real consideration. A large study of adults over 65 with high cumulative exposure to this class of drugs found a substantially elevated risk of sudden cardiac events. Almost none of them were ever told the medication could do that. They were given it for sleep or for pain, then gradually noticed new palpitations or near syncope and simply assumed it was part of getting older. It does not even require a high dose. A small nightly dose taken for years can quietly affect the heart's timing. If you or someone you love takes amitriptyline, that is a conversation worth having soon. For nerve pain and sleep, there are options with far lower cardiac burden. Number 3 is the one I told you to watch for because it is prescribed to millions of people for something that sounds completely harmless. Number 3 is paroxetine, sold as Paxil. It is one of the most widely prescribed members of the SSRI family, used for both depression and anxiety. On the surface, it appears to be a modern, gentle option. But here's the detail that is rarely discussed. Paroxetine is the one SSRI with meaningful anticholinergic activity and a stronger signal for QT effect than many of its siblings. That single characteristic sets it apart from related medications such as sertraline and escitalopram. SSRIs found that paroxetine users showed higher rates of rhythm disturbances and cardiac symptoms within the first year compared with those on other antidepressants. There is a painful irony in that finding. The medication is prescribed to help stabilize mood, yet over time it may stress the very organ that needs to stay rock steady. In older adults, paroxetine is generally a medication worth approaching with caution when alternatives are available. If you take it, speak with your doctor about the possibility of switching to a different SSRI that does not carry the same profile. Number 2 is prescribed so quietly that many people taking it do not even realize the type of medication it is. Number 2 is the antipsychotic medications, and this one concerns me deeply because many individuals taking these drugs never knowingly agreed to take an antipsychotic. The names include quetiapine, sold as Seroquel, risperidone, sold as Risperdal, and olanzapine, sold as Zyprexa. These medications were originally developed for serious psychiatric conditions such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Today, however, they are often prescribed off-label to older adults for sleep problems, mild restlessness, or agitation. Powerful medications designed for severe illness are now frequently used in homes and nursing facilities for seniors who are simply confused or difficult to manage. The cardiac cost is steep. These drugs are well known for prolonging the QT interval and raising the risk of sudden cardiac death, especially in the elderly. A major 2022 analysis found that older adults given antipsychotics for behavioral symptoms had a dramatically higher rate of serious cardiac events within a year. They work by suppressing dopamine, also interfering with the heart's electrical recovery. Drop that system far enough and the heart becomes vulnerable to a fatal rhythm. If you or a loved one is on one of these, the first move is to ask the prescribing doctor a direct question. Why was this started, and is it truly necessary? Most behavioral symptoms can be eased without a drug that carries this level of cardiac risk. When medication really is needed, the lowest dose for the shortest time keeps the harm down. Number 1 is not a single drug at all, and it may be the biggest hidden driver of every story I just told you. Number 1 is cardiac risk polypharmacy. It is the danger almost nobody names, and it may be one of the largest causes of drug-induced sudden cardiac events in older adults. You are probably waiting for one final villain, a single worst pill. The real worst case is something subtler. The slow stacking effect, taking several drugs that each slightly raise arrhythmia or QT risk at the same time, with nobody adding up the total. Picture a very common situation. A senior takes Benadryl every night to sleep, oxybutynin every day for the bladder, and amitriptyline for nerve pain. On its own, each one might cause only a small, barely noticeable change. Taken together, they compound, and the total electrical burden on the heart climbs fast. A large 2022 study of older adults found that those with the highest combined burden of these types of medications had more than double the risk of serious cardiac events within 10 years. The great majority had no idea they were stacking risk at all. No one had ever explained it to them. When you stress the heart's electrical system from several directions at once, it does not just idle. The margin for error shrinks. A rhythm that would have corrected itself can become the one that does not. Here is the hopeful part, and it is the reason I made this video. Drug-related cardiac risk is often reducible when it is caught early. Lift the unnecessary burden and many people stabilize. The heart is more resilient than we give it credit for, but only if you take away what is. Stressing it, the fix does not take a miracle. It takes a careful medication review. Sit down with your doctor or your pharmacist and have them go through every prescription, every over-the-counter pill, and every supplement and add up the cardiac and QT load. There are simple tools that do exactly that. Once the problem drugs are spotted, you can taper what you do not need, switch to safer options, and give the heart more margin. This is the most preventable threat to the aging heart on this entire list, and that is exactly why it sits at number 1. Now, I want to hear from you. Of these 9, which ones are in your cabinet right now? Have you noticed new palpitations, lightheadedness, or unusual fatigue after starting something new? Tell me below, and tell me you will ask for a medication review this week. Your answer might be the thing that saves the next person who reads it. And just before you go, there is one more place your body hides its warnings. Your medicine cabinet is one. Your resting pulse is another. The pattern of your beat at rest and how it responds when you stand up can flag trouble years before anything else does. And most people never know what to look for. That is the next video. I will show you the 4 pulse and blood pressure signs to monitor tonight. I'm your host. Stay steady and that. I will see you at Haman. I will see you in the next one.